So my first bikepacking experience was honestly one of the most difficult and most memorable things I've ever done on a bicycle. It was 2022 and COVID rules were loosening. It was easier to travel around, and so I thought that's the perfect time to start my bikepacking journey. And the plan sounded really simple in my head. Ride towards the Great Wall of China and back. And I gave myself 3 days. And that was the plan. Like many first bikepacking trips, I was equal parts excited, unprepared, overly optimistic, and completely unaware of what I was about to experience. And honestly, I think that's part of the magic, because your first bikepacking trip teaches you things that no YouTube video, no Reddit thread, and no gear review can fully prepare you for. You can only learn while you are out there. Tired, sweaty, hungry, questioning your decisions halfway up a mountain climb. And looking back, I think there are definitely things that I would change. I think before every first bikepacking trip, there's this romantic image in your head. You imagine beautiful roads, nice scenery, cinematic sunsets, freedom, adventure. And yes, all of these moments exist. But nobody really romanticizes pushing your bike up the hill really exhausted, desperately searching for food, misjudging distance, climbing for what feels like forever. And on my trip towards the Great Wall of China, the mountain humbled me very quickly. Especially because it was my first truly long sustained climb. It's not a short hill, which I'm used to around Singapore and Southeast Asia. A proper climb where your legs slowly realize that, oh, we're gonna do this for a while. I remember my Garmin beeping at me and telling me that we're gonna do a climb. And that was my first time looking at that stats page. So honestly, what's the biggest thing I would change? I would train more before the trip. Not because you really need to become some elite athlete to bikepack, but because fitness changes the entire experience. When your fitness is too low, everything feels more difficult, recovery becomes slower, your mood drops faster, and small problems become huge mentally. And I think I underestimated how much climbing affects fatigue, especially when I was carrying gear. A loaded bike climbing mountains is completely different from a casual weekend ride. Your speed drops, your legs burn differently, and even your breathing changes. And honestly, I think beginner bikepackers sometimes underestimate how much endurance matters more than speed. You don't need to be fast, but you do need enough fitness to enjoy the journey instead of merely surviving it. Because if every hour feels miserable, you stop appreciating where you are. And that's something I wish I understood earlier. Another thing I would absolutely change would be lower gearing. No ego, no pride, just lower gear. At that time, I didn't fully appreciate how important gearing becomes during long climbs. And now there's the added weight of luggage. And there's this really funny thing in cycling culture where people sometimes act like easier gears are somehow less impressive. I honestly haven't thought about lowering the chainring for a really long time, but in that recent Bintan trip, you're crawling up hills for hours, you quickly realize that comfort and sustainability matters more than pride. A lower gear would have saved my knees, reduced fatigue, and maybe help pacing, probably improve my enjoyment massively. And honestly, spinning slowly uphill is still better than suffering unnecessarily. Alright, before we carry on, I just want to give a quick shout out to Winspace for supporting the channel. I personally really like gear that genuinely improves the riding experience, so that's why I've been really interested in what Winspace is doing. They make high performance cycling components and wheel sets that are actually accessible to everyday riders, not just the elite level racers with unlimited budget. So I've been thinking about getting a set of carbon wheels for a while now because they really transform how your bike rides. So if you are thinking about upgrading your bike, wheels, or components, definitely check them out using the link in my description below. It helps to support the channel at no extra cost to you. It allows me to keep making more cycling videos focused on riding, mental clarity, and the simple joys of cycling. And now, back to the video. So I would also plan my route much better. I have 3 days, and on the first day, I actually only did about 35 kilometers to the hotel. From the second day, I set off from the hotel towards the Great Wall, and and back to this hotel, which is a total of 150 kilometers. On the third day, I ride these 35 kilometers from the hotel back to where my apartment was in Beijing. And I think that this is something first-time bikepackers often overlook. On paper, distance can seem manageable, but route planning isn't just how many kilometers. I believe it was just that back then. But when riding outside of Singapore, I have to consider about elevation, road conditions, food availability, weather exposure, traffic, and rest stops. And the mountains completely change your perception of distance. What looks nearby on the map can suddenly become hours of climbing, which I really quickly learned towards the middle of the second day. I think during my trip, I was too focused on the destination. It's the Great Wall, the achievement, the idea of completing the route. I honestly didn't spend enough time understanding what the actual riding would feel like. Now I realize that good route planning isn't just logistic. It's kindness towards your future self. Another lesson is I will carry more food, like seriously more food. I don't think people fully understand how hungry bikepacking actually makes you, especially climbing. You burn through your energy constantly, and hunger on a long ride feels different. It's not just, I'm a little bit hungry. It becomes energy crashing, mood dropping, and brain slowing down. Your legs also start to feel empty. Sounds familiar? And I remember moments where I was thinking about food almost more than the scenery. Now, whenever I ride longer distances, I always carry extra snacks, even if I don't think I need them. Because few things improve morale faster than suddenly finding energy snacks halfway through suffering. So one thing I definitely regret would be filming the whole trip using a 360 camera. At that time, I thought that this is perfect. I can capture everything. And technically, yes, a 360 camera is incredibly versatile. But looking back, I think a traditional action cam actually tells stories better. I was using a Insta360 X2, which is the latest camera available at that time. However, when you flatten into a linear video, the resolution of the video actually suffers a lot. Luckily, I got a really good phone camera that was able to capture a lot of the scenery. And during such a memorable trip, I wish I captured a little better, captured more. Like at least more details, more emotions, the atmosphere, and maybe the quiet moments. At that time, I also realized that I wasn't really showing the weaker parts because I didn't want to show that part of the journey. So I think that storytelling matters a lot more than capturing every angle right now. Okay, but honestly, despite all the mistakes, I wouldn't trade that trip for anything. Because first bikepacking trips are supposed to be slightly messy. And that's how you learn. And I think bikepacking teaches you something very rare in modern life. You can keep going even when things become uncomfortable. Not because you are superhuman, but because eventually the road continues, the climb will end, and your body adapts, your mind settles. Somewhere along that ride, you stop thinking about performance and start thinking about simpler things like food, rest, recovery, scenery, movement, reaching the next destination or the next rest spot. And there's something strangely peaceful about that. So if I could redo my first bikepacking trip, I would train better, plan better, carry more food, use lower gears, and I'll film differently. But honestly, I think that the imperfectionness of that trip is what made it memorable. Because bikepacking isn't really about executing the perfect adventure. It's really about experiencing the journey fully, including all the mistakes. And sometimes those difficult moments become the stories that you remember the most many years later, especially the suffering. So have you done your first bikepacking trip? I really want to hear your experience. You can leave them down in the comments below. And if you like video essays like these, do subscribe. I really enjoy making these videos, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye bye.